Okay, good morning. I'd like to call our full board meeting to order. It is 11:31 on March 1st, 2024. I'd like to start with the roll call. I am present, Gilda Dominguez, Board Chair. Dr. Amy White.
I'm here. Do you need to listen?
Mr.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry, Gilda. I'm located at the board office at 1601 Response Road, Suite 260, Sacramento, California, 95815.
all right, thank you. Mr. Todd Borges, go ahead and restate your name, your location, and if there's anyone from the board or the public located there with you.
Todd Borges. I am here at 714 West Lodi Avenue in the offices of Hearing Life. There is no member of the public here with me.
Miss Karen Chang.
Hi, my name is Karen Chang. I'm here with Gilda Dominguez at Galeras Family Education Center, 427 West Carroll Avenue, Room 2, Glendora, California, 91741.
Mr. John Danderand.
Morning, John Dandrin. I'm here at Moore Park Public Library, 699 Moore Park Avenue in Moore Park, California, 93021, and there are no public members here.
Thank you. Dr. Charles Sanders.
I'm at the board office on Response Road in Sacramento.
Thank you. Dr. Tulio Valdez.
Currently, there is a staff member logging into that location and will be on momentarily to open.
Okay, thank you. Can we confirm that we have the establishment of a quorum at this time?
We do. We will need to wait for confirmation of the opening of the other room at the Stanford location before we can proceed, though.
Okay, so at this point, we'll go ahead and stand by and wait till we have the confirmation?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and mute at this point.
And this is the moderator. We do have a call-in user from the 510 area code. And if you would like to unmute yourself, our call-in user, you can press *6 and let us know if you are the Stanford staff member. You're unmuted, but we're not hearing your voice.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having technical issues, but yes, I am the Stanford representative.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Can you go ahead and let us know your location and if anyone is in the room with you?
Let me see. My location is the Center for Clinical Science Research, and it is the 269 Campus Drive, room number 4107, fourth floor, here in Stanford, 94304. And nobody's here, just myself. And Dr. Valdez is running a little late, but he should be in shortly.
Thank you so much. You now have a quorum, Gilda, and can proceed.
Sharice, can you identify the staff?
All right, thank you.
All right, Gilda,
So the staff, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
shall we have any staff also announce who's present as well?
Hi, Chair Dominguez. This is Paul Sanchez, and I just want to acknowledge that we have a staff present here at the Sacramento office. Paul Sanchez, the Executive Officer, Sharice Burns, the Assistant Executive Officer. We have Maria Lorenzo, our Regulations Analyst, and our Legal Counsel, Yuping Lin. Thank
Right,
you.
thank you. I'd now like to ask for public comment for items not on the agenda. I would like to ask the moderator to open public comment at this time.
And this is the moderator. We have opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A features to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment, you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. You can look for the question mark icon and click that. Type the word comment into the text box and click send. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on anything that is not on the agenda? And I do not see anyone requesting to comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moderator. We'll move on to agenda item 3, the review and possible approval of the November 3rd through December 1st, 2023 board meeting minutes. I will ask Ms. Maria Lorenzo to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Attached is the draft minutes from November 30th and December 1st, 2023. At the board meeting, the board swore in a new board member, adopted a legislative proposal to make non-substantive changes to the Board's Practice Act, responded to public comments on proposed regulations regarding hearing aid dispensing's continuing education, and audiology and SLP continuing professional development, proposed changes to regulations regarding hearing aid dispensing and dispensing audiology examination requirement, processing times, and audiology supervised clinical experience, elected board officers for 2024, and discuss potential dates for board meeting in 2024. Also included are the minutes for the Audiology Practice Committee, the SLP Practice Committee, and the Hearing Aid Dispensing Committee.
Is there any board discussion regarding these meeting minutes?
I have a request. I'm not, I'm fine with the minutes. I'm just wondering if there's possible to turn up the microphones for the attendees at the board on Response Road. Is there any way to turn up their output? Because in order for me to hear them, Gilda's yelling at me.
I'm sorry.
Because I have to turn it up so loud. You come in beautifully, but they're very soft. So I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do on your end for that. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. Yes.
Wait. You'll forget to check the setting on the computer. Yeah, so we'll take a look at our settings. In the meantime, we're open to comments for changes.
Okay, hearing there is no board discussion. I would like to ask for a motion for approval and a second for these board meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes. This is Todd.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Dr. White, a second.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the moderator to open public comment at this time.
And we have opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A features for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the minutes or the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box, and then click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any requests for comment? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would now like to ask Charisse to conduct the roll call vote at this time.
Absolutely. Gilda Dominguez,
Aye.
Amy White,
Aye.
Todd Borges,
Aye.
Sorry.
Todd Borges,
Aye.
Karen Chang,
Aye.
John Danduran,
Aye.
Charles Sanders.
Aye.
And Todd, just let us know if you can hear us better.
Not much, but that's fine. I'll just live with it. Thank you.
Sorry, we've turned our microphone all the way up in here.
Well,
All right, thank you. I'd like to move to agenda item 4, the review and possible approval of the February 2nd, 2024 board meeting minutes. Todd, I'll try to talk a little lower, if that helps. I would now like to ask Maria Lorenzo to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Attached to the draft is the draft minute meetings from the February 2nd, 2024 board meeting. The minute includes the board discussion on the proposed regulations regarding slip of supervision. At this meeting, the board ratified amendments made to the proposed text.
Is there any board discussion regarding these board meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, may I ask for a motion to approve and a second regarding these meeting minutes?
Dr. Charles Sanders, I move to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Dr.
Dandrin,
White,
I second.
All right, thank you. I'd like to ask the moderator to open public comment regarding these meeting minutes.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up both the WebEx Q&A and hand raise features to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, you can click on the hand icon to raise your hand, or you can click on the question mark icon, type the word comment into the text box and click send. And keep in mind, if you are on a mobile device, you may find these features behind the 3-dot other options on your device. Each speaker will have 3 minutes and a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the minutes? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I'd like to ask Charisse to conduct the roll call vote regarding the approval of these board meeting minutes.
You got it. Gilda Dominguez,
Aye.
Amy White,
Aye.
Todd Borges,
Aye.
Karen Chang,
Aye.
John Danduran,
Aye.
Charles Sanders.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We'll move now to agenda item number 5, the DCA update, the DCA Board and Bureau Relations. I would now like to ask Brian Clifford of the DCA Executive Office to provide the Board and Bureau Relations update at this time.
And it appears that Christy Van Eycken is going to be presenting that today, and I have made you available. Christy, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you're welcome to.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all for the opportunity to join you today. I'll be presenting the DCA update on behalf of Board and Bureau Relations today. So to start off with a Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency update. The Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency welcomed a new secretary this month. Tamikwa Moss was appointed by Governor Newsom and officially began serving as secretary on February 12th. We extend a warm welcome to Secretary Moss and look forward to working under her leadership. Next, we have a budget update. In December, the Department of Finance issued a budget letter that directs all agencies and departments under the governor to take immediate action to reduce current year expenditures. Given the fiscal outlook, the state of California anticipates a significant general fund budget deficit in fiscal years 2023 to 24 and 2024 to 25, which will require all state entities to take immediate measures to ensure more prudent spending. Except for time-sensitive, emergency-related, mission-critical, or information security needs, immediate actions include the cancellation of all non-essential travel, such as participation in seminars, conferences, and training both in-state and out-of-state. Boards should immediately review all spending and determine where savings can be realized. Specifically, when planning meetings, it is important boards conduct a cost analysis to determine the most economical option for the state. Please remember that when traveling, you need to consider all forms of transportation and hotel accommodations to determine the most economical option for that state. DCA has issued further guidance to leadership about exemption requests for purchases, contracts, and travel. DCA appreciates your partnership as we work together to reduce costs. And if you have any questions, please contact Board and Bureau Relations. Next, we have a DEI update. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, also referred to as DEI Steering Committee, held its quarterly meeting on December 15th, 2023. The committee reviewed a draft DEI intranet webpage for employees, re-elected its chairperson and vice chairperson for 2024, and discussed DEI trainings. After approval at the meeting, the committee announced the launch of the DEI intranet page to department staff. This page provides a centralized location with DEI-related tools and information and real-time updates on the department's DEI activities for all employees. Providing DEI training opportunities continues to be a priority for the department and the DEI Steering Committee. DCA is pleased to offer board members a DEI training on how leaders navigate DEI dialogue in the workplace. The training is recorded and can be taken online at your convenience via DCA's Learning Management System, or LMS. The online training is provided by Christopher Veal, who has 25 years of corporate experience providing coaching, training, and leadership development. The training provides tools for effective conversations, psychological safety, and how it impacts these conversations, and includes discussion around challenges leaders are facing. If you have any questions about this training, please contact DCA Board and Bureau Relations. The DEI Steering Committee would like to continue to learn about and showcase the DEI activities of the DCA's boards and bureaus. If your board has DEI efforts and achievements to share, please send them to DCA Board and Bureau Relations. DCA continues to support DCA boards and bureaus in expanding culturally competent communications and promoting the importance of meeting the needs of all California consumers, licensees, and applicants. The latest issue of DCA's Consumer Connection magazine includes articles with information important to consumers, including a feature cover story translated into 3 languages, Tagalog, Swahili, and Spanish, to further the reach of this information. The magazine is available on the DCA homepage. Printed copies of the magazine are also available, and if you'd like one, please contact Board and Bureau Relations for more info. Next, an update on threat assessment training. DCA held an active threat assessment training for board and bureau leadership teams on February 2nd. California Highway Patrol Officer Byron Wong provided the training, where participants learned about steps that can be taken in the event of an active threat. DCA plans to explore providing this type of training to all board members and staff in the future. Next, an update on the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. On February 2nd, DCA provided guidance on the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act amendments to the teleconference meeting requirements, which took effect on January 1st, 2024, to DCA board and bureau leadership. The guidance provides a general overview of the traditional in-person and teleconference meeting requirements and a detailed discussion of the legal requirements and best practices for conducting meetings using the two new teleconference meeting procedures. DCA is here to help boards and bureaus navigate these new requirements. Please direct any questions about the requirements for teleconference meetings to board or bureau legal counsel. Next, a legislative implementation update. The department successfully developed and launched a new process and portal in support of service members and their families following new federal and state laws passed in 2023. Known as the Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration Portal, this new DCA online portal allows boards and bureaus to accept online requests from military service members and their spouses who currently hold a valid license in good standing in another state, district, or territory to register their practice in California within the same profession or vocation if they relocate to California because of military orders. This online portal allows DCA boards and bureaus to timely receive, track, and review requests to ensure compliance with federal and state law. Registrations are required to be approved within 30 days of the board or bureau receiving all the necessary documentation. In addition, DCA's military resources webpage and board and bureau licensing webpages were updated with federal professional license portability and state registration information. Currently, there are 21 individuals who have registered using the portal and are authorized to practice in California. DCA has shared the new portal with representatives from the U.S. Department of Defense, California Governor's Military Council, California Department of Veterans Affairs, and the California Military Department, as well as relevant legislative committee staff. DCA also provided an outreach toolkit to each board and bureau to share social media updates and listserv emails regarding the launch of the new portal with stakeholders. SB 372 was signed by Governor Newsom in September and became effective January 1st, 2024. This bill requires DCA boards and bureaus to update license records if they receive government-issued documentation demonstrating a legal change of name or gender for gender transition or domestic violence reasons. This bill allows licensees to request their prior name not be published online in connection with the license or the current name, and establishes a process for individuals to access a licensee's enforcement records under their prior name. This required DCA to ensure the previous name does not appear in connection to the new name on the DCA online license search, while also ensuring that any previous disciplinary records follow the individual so consumers can contact the board or bureau to obtain previous disciplinary information without allowing the new name to be associated with the previous name online. DCA developed a new web page and global form that licensees can use to request this new information confidentially. DCA also distributed an outreach toolkit with messaging for board staff to use when receiving questions from licensees and the public. And that concludes our DCA update today. Thank you all for your dedicated service to protect the consumers of California. I really appreciate your time today and welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you for that. I'd like to open. I feel like there's feedback. I'd like to open for board discussion at this time. Well, I'd like to thank you for sharing the information regarding personnel, the budget advisement, the DEI update, the Bagley-Keene Act, and the portal. And thank you for all your efforts on all these matters and issues. It's appreciated.
Absolutely. I'll pass your thanks on to Board and Bureau Relations specifically, since I'm just representing them today.
You're welcome. I'd like to ask the moderator this time to open for public comment.
And this is the moderator. We have opened up the hand raise and Q&A features to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the DCA report, you may look for the hand icon, click that, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send. And any call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Thank you. Yes, please.
You're welcome.
I'd like to move to agenda item number 6, board chair's report. I'd like to provide a verbal update on the board and committee activities based on our board meeting calendar that has been established for 2024. Our upcoming meetings will be held on May 9th through 10th in Sacramento and via teleconference. The one after that will be held on September 5th through 6th in a location to be determined in Southern California. And then the last meeting of the year will be held November 6th through 7th in Sacramento and via teleconference. We did have a enforcement ad hoc committee meeting yesterday, February 29th, 2024. And we reviewed and proposed modifications regarding the language contained in the disciplinary guidelines. And next, Regulatory Council will review upon submission. So that is a summary of our Enforcement Ad Hoc Committee meeting that we had yesterday. At this point, I'd like to ask the moderator to open for public comment.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A features for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the board chair's report, you may look for the hand icon and click that, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the board chair report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I have, this is Karen. I have a question. Since there's going to be a travel ban, I guess, are we still going to have like a full the meeting September 5 and 6 if it's going to be in Southern California, or is it just going to be like Sacramento and then teleconference?
I think we're going to have, sorry, this is Sharice Burns. I think we're going to have conversations about what items will be on the agenda in order to determine whether it merits meeting in person versus via teleconference. And then if it merits being in person, submitting the exemption request with enough time to make sure we can get everything approved ahead of time. I do want to, have consideration for things like petition hearings, which are a little more difficult to have over teleconference. It's not impossible, but it is a little more difficult, and most petitioners would prefer to be in person. So we may end up having the Southern California one for that particular reason, potentially. So we will be convening meetings with your board chair and then trying to determine kind of the map out of the rest of the year and see where we go from there.
Just to add to that, the plan is to have a meeting in person to deal with some of those issues that Sharice mentioned.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any further discussion before we move to agenda item 7? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask Mr. Sanchez to provide his executive officer's report. Thank you.
Okay, good. Did you? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. You have your hand carry agenda item that was sent to you, the executive officer's report. And I'm going to start with an administrative update. We have some good news in that we are almost fully staffed. Since the last time we spoke or that we met, we hired 2 additional licensing staff. One to fill the vacant licensing analyst position, and the other staff for the licensing technician position that was obtained through the budget process. We are actually in the process right now of recruiting for another enforcement analyst position, and this person is going to primarily help us with CE audits and other enforcement tasks. We hope to start interviewing those candidates within the next month. So just wanted to point out that you can see that the budget process is a slow process, but it actually works. And we're seeing some of those benefits that I'll be discussing further here. Before I go to that, I want to just give an outreach update. As was mentioned earlier by Ms. Van Eycken, the Department of Finance issued Budget Letter 2327 that directs agencies and departments that are under the direct authority of the governor to reduce their current year expenditures. These reductions can affect non-essential travel and attendance to conferences. So we may be attending less outreach events in person. There's a process to go through if we want to attend, and we can look at other ways to conduct outreach. A lot of the outreach that we do through video conferencing, conference calls with other organizations, and we will continue to try to reach out to those organizations and participate in discussions like we have in the past. That leads to our budget report. And again, we in our office are looking at ways to reduce spending and monitor our spending activities to achieve cost savings as directed in Budget Letter 2327. You have in your materials several reports. One is our fund condition report, and that is a snapshot of our budget outlook. It shows you revenue and expenditures, and you look at those lines, you can see that right now we have conservative projections in revenue. I know that question came up. We typically project conservatively, kind of straight line across the coming years. So even with those conservative projections, you can see that we have a healthy outlook right now. We have a good fiscal structural balance, and we're projecting to remain healthy for the coming years. In addition to your fund condition report, you have an operating expenditure report. This kind of shows you our operating budget, and we base projections on our projected costs for the rest of the year. This goes through the month of December. So the reports are usually in arrears, but you can see that we project a surplus right now of almost 2%, and we'll try to keep it no lower than 2% and monitor that closely as we get through the year. We've also included a table of regulations, and this is just a snapshot. We'll go over regulations more later in the meeting, but you can see all of the packets that we're working on. I think for a board of our size, this is a very healthy amount of work, and I think we're still trying to push through it. We plan on having our own assigned counsel that's going to be starting with us soon. From what I'm told, through DCA Legal. And that also helps because our regulations analyst is in constant communication with the legal office on many of these packets. Going to our licensing report, I do want to point out that board staff has cleared the licensing backlog. We had a huge backlog from not just the influx of work, but trying to work through our business modernization project. And throughout that time, our staff was trying to manage the project, troubleshoot, test, all the things that go into project management, and at the same time handle the workload that actually continues to increase in licensing. So the good news is we're currently we've currently cleared that backlog. The table below shows you licensing cycle times. And if you look at where we are right now and where we were last year at this time, we were at about 12 weeks for completed applications. Currently, we've reduced that time frame to 3 weeks. And you can see the differences. Reviewing documents, last year we were at about 9 weeks. We reduced that to 1 week. And last year at this time, we were experiencing that backlog. So that's during the time that we are starting the business modernization project. Reviewing verification forms, we went from 7 weeks to 2 weeks, and hearing aid dispensing applications, 9 weeks to 3 weeks. There are other measures, there are other exceptions to this. But I do want to point out that just comparing apples to apples, you can see that our board staff are working hard and they've done a great job. So I want to commend the licensing staff. Their lead person, Lisa Snelling, has done a great job just kind of working with Sharice and making sure that the backlog and a lot of the work gets done. The next item I want to discuss is just practical examinations. I've included the most recent summary of results for the November 17th, 18th, and January 26th and 27th examinations. Those results are there for you to review. You also have in your materials an enforcement statistical report and a licensing report. Our enforcement numbers are kind of moving along steadily, relatively low for this time of the year as far as the number of complaints that we receive. I've also included the last 12 months of discipline on the very last page. And these are the disciplinary orders that you have adopted as a board. And at this time, that's my complete report. Ms. Dominguez, thank you.
Thank you for that. A lot of work that the team is doing. I'd like to open up open up for board discussion. Are there any comments that the board would like to make? Hearing none, I'd like to ask the moderator to open for public comment at this time.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A features to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the executive officer's report, you can look for the hand icon and click that, or you can look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. If you are on a mobile device, remember these features may be behind the 3-dot other options feature on your device. Are there any comments on the report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda is agenda item number 8, the presentation on the 2024 strategic planning process for the board. I would like to ask Ms. Ann Fisher from DCA to present the information about the strategic planning process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will change my hat to my strategic planning hat and start off with an overview. So as you heard, my name is Ann Fisher. I'm Strategic Business Analyst with Solid, and I will be facilitating the planning process. And today I wanted to give you an overview of the strategic planning process. First, we're going to cover the what, why, and how of strategic planning. So what is strategic plan? A strategic plan takes into account your mission, vision, values, goals, and stakeholder feedback, and documents those objectives and initiatives that are important to you as an organization. Strategic planning is the process through which fundamental decisions and actions are produced that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it does it. It defines your organization's direction, outlining a path from your present towards a preferred future. And why do we need strategic planning? Because The strategic planning is critical to making state government programs and operations more efficient and effective. In the 1990s, legislation was enacted requiring all state agencies to develop strategic plans, measurable performance objectives, and continuing improvement processes. And additionally, creating strategic plans is designed to help your program achieve your short-term and long-term objectives. However, for a strategic plan to work, it must contain specific goals and measurable objectives, as well as a plan for achieving them. And the Department of Consumer Affairs, we use a 5-phase approach, which includes the surveying of various stakeholder groups, a trends report of the stakeholder feedback, and a facilitated workshop where we guide board members and the board's executives in identifying objectives. So let's look at that strategic planning roadmap in a little more detail. Here in Solid, we utilize this roadmap with the 5 stages of the strategic planning and a broad list of tasks that occur within each stage. And at the bottom, you'll see the optional services that we offer. And when we layer on additional estimated time frames associated with each stage of this process, you can see that it is something that takes time. It's important, and it deserves that time and attention necessary to create your own roadmap that will define your direction and your path from now through the next several years. As you may be aware, the governor has issued an executive order to strengthen the state's commitment to a California for all by directing state agencies and departments to take additional actions to embed equity analysis and considerations into all of its policies and practices, including strategic planning. And here at DCA, we're driven by our consumer protection mission and a common goal to support our employees and the people and communities across California. As such, you'll find that we've improved our strategic planning process to reflect our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which you will see abbreviated many times as DEI. So the components of the DEI initiative are to look at where we are now, where we're going, and how we'll get there. So we can start with where are we now? And this is your mission statement. And this mission statement defines the purpose of your organization by explaining what it does. So during this session, you will have the opportunity to review this and make any changes or updates that you'd like to make to the mission, the values, and your vision. So your values currently are listed on the screen, and this defines what your organization does and your values of how you do it. Your set of values are your guiding principles. They communicate your core priorities, your mission, how your stakeholders are treated, and the desired culture within the organization, the things you feel most passionately about. As we perform our analysis, which is the environmental scan, we seek feedback from internal and external stakeholders, and then we'll conduct an assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of each of your organization's units and goal areas. We call this a SWOT analysis. We look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT, not SWAT. So your internal stakeholders are you, the board members, the DCA staff, and the board management and staff members. Some examples of external stakeholders could include consumers and consumer groups, licensees and industry associations, and anyone else who's affected by the work of the board or the professions that you regulate. So now that we know where we are, where do we want to be? Tied into the mission statement is a vision statement. A vision statement illustrates a successful future where you've met all of your goals and objectives. This is the utopia that we're hoping for. And the stakeholder feedback that we receive is going to guide you through where you want to be with your goals and objectives. These are the goals that our surveys will focus on. They're long-term and broad and give general direction and action. You'll also be later constructing objectives. Those are more short-term. They will run the length of your strategic plan, which is usually 4 or 5 years. They're more narrow, and they give specific direction and action. For instance, a large goal area could be technology, but the objective under that goal area could be develop a software application functionality to support enforcement and field investigations. So it's not too in the weeds, but it is certainly more specific than an overarching goal. One second, sorry. And then, as I said, the objectives are developed based on the trends that stakeholders have identified, as well as any initiatives or issues that the board is looking to address. So during the strategic planning session, you and the management team will have time to discuss and assess and develop the objectives that you'll be working with over the next several years. After we've identified where you want to go through the drafting of the objectives, how do we get there? Well, the management team will meet with Solid to discuss the objectives, assess all the available resources, outline the action steps towards accomplishing your objectives, and will identify individual tasks, assignment of those tasks, and establishing target timeframes. So this phase in general is called action planning. And lastly, how do we measure our progress? Since a strategic plan lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 years, project management charts with regular check-ins are useful for monitoring this, and Solid will provide an action planning tracker for you and the board staff to use to check and see how you're doing along the way. So that is it on the strategic planning overview. Are there any questions from board members?
Thank you for the presentation. I do have a question.
Sure.
This is Gilda Dominguez. Regarding the strategic planning, how frequently is the strategic plan reviewed and or updated and made available to the public via certain modes, for example, online?
Right. The process for each board is slightly different. There are some boards that like to check in very frequently and they do a 2-year plan. There are others who would really prefer to not have to hop back to this and take the time so frequently. Your previous plan ran from 2021 to 24. This one will start in 24, and depending on how many objectives you come up with, you can choose whether to have it go through 27, 2028, 2029, whatever you choose to do. Almost every board I've seen does publish their strategic plan on their website, and you do have your current plan on your website now. If you'd like to review it annually, you can talk that over with your executive officer and make that happen.
Yeah, thank you. That would be great to see where that is located online. The one that I was able to locate is the one from 2016 to 2020. So that would be great if we can get the resource for that is online. Maybe I'm looking in a different location.
Yeah, we should have our current one online. I've seen it there, right?
It's on the forms and publications page. And let me just, I can't share it with you, but I'm going to double check that I am. Oh,
I'm sure board staff would be happy to email it out to the full board.
yes.
Yes, that would be great. And then maybe just replace it under the link under board activity where the previous one was.
Well, I was not aware that there's one under the board activity. Yes, it is under the forms and publications general strategic plan. That is a great catch, and we will have to add that to the other page. I did not I was not aware there was a link there. So you can find our 2016 and the 2021 to 2024. The only reason you know it's there is because that's the one I knew about. So I will look at that other location as well. So
Well, thank you.
speechandhearing.ca.gov and then go to forms/publications and then scroll all the way down to general.
Thank you.
This is John Dandran. I have a quick question. Will time be allotted to the board meetings for discussion on this, or will there be separate meetings for this?
This will actually be a part of your board meetings. So we will actually schedule it during one of the 2-day meetings, most likely, I believe, the Sacramento one in May, and a lot, anywhere from a half day to 3/4 of a day for this. I believe last time the board was able to do the process in a half day. We were teleconference at that time, so I don't know if that had anything with it, but we will be looking at putting that as part of the agenda for the, I believe, May 9th and 10th. I want to say the wrong date, but that meeting. So it will be in there. And then, of course, as Ann mentioned, you know, we get the input from all our external stakeholders, also board members and also staff. And then we take all of that input in, and then we go through all of those and review and revise.
And I think it's a good thing we're talking about the link and where it is. I encourage board members to look at our strategic plan. This is a good time to, if you have goals that you can identify that can turn into, you know, objectives and projects for us. This can be a catalyst for us to make that happen. We use this not just in starting projects, but it also helps us with making budget changes and strategic changes in our office. If you look at previous plans, you can see some of the things that we've accomplished just based on the goals that you've come up with in past years.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. I really enjoy SWOT analysis work, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Wonderful. And just as a point of information, I did find the website, and both the previous and the current strategic plan are down towards the bottom of the that publications page.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, thank you. And if you'd like, I can go out for public comment. If you don't feel it's needed, then I'm happy to wrap up my presentation.
Yes, I would like to ask moderator, you do a roll.
Right.
So open public comment, please.
Certainly.
On this presentation.
Absolutely. So if anyone would like to make a comment on the strategic planning overview, you can look for the question mark icon and click that and type the word comment and then click send. Or you can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. If you're on a mobile device, you may need to go through the 3-dot other options to find those icons. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Any questions on the strategic planning overview? I don't see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I see that there's a break on the agenda from 1:30 to 1:50. We are definitely running ahead of schedule, but I would like to request maybe a short break, maybe 5 minutes. If someone wants to go 10, that's fine with me, but may I ask for that at this time?
Yes.
Why don't we give it 10 minutes?
Okay. Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and reconvene at 12:35. All right, thank you. Office staff, will you please advise if I need to reconvene by taking a roll call?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. I am here. I'll continue. Dr. Amy White,
Here.
Mr. Todd Borges, Ms. Karen Chang,
Here.
Mr. John Dandurand,
Here.
Dr. Charles Sanders,
Here.
Dr. Tulio Valdez.
I'm the Sanford representative.
Do you have any members of the public with you? Any of the locations?
You need the location again?
No, do you have any members, anyone else there with you?
No.
Okay.
Dr. Valdez should hopefully be here within the next 5-10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll go ahead and move to agenda item 9. The legislative report, update, review, and possible action on proposed legislation. I would like to ask Ms. Lorenzo to provide this legislative report.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. The first item in the report is the legislative calendar and deadlines. As you can see, we did pass 2 major deadlines, such as the passing bills introduced in the first year, as well as bills introduction. And so now we're in the process of having bills go through the House of Origin for that next big deadline, which is in May. The next item in the report is the 2023 legislation implementation updates. The first one is SB 372 regarding name and gender changes. This bill would require the board to update a licensee's and registrant's license and any references to their name or gender displayed on the internet if the board receives from the licensee or registrant government-issued documentations demonstrating that their legal name or gender has been changed. It would require that the board post an online statement to direct the public to contact the board for more information if the licensee or registrant has enforcement records referencing their former name or gender. As it was stated earlier, the Department of Consumer Affairs did create a DCA-wide online solution for licensees of DCA boards and bureaus to submit online the request for name and gender change, notification and request for confidentiality. In the memo, you'll see the link for that form and information. The board did notify licensees and stakeholders in an electronic advisory about the statutory change on January 25th, 2024. And we're currently revising board forms to align with this process, such as our notification of name change and request for replacement license. Licensees and stakeholders will be notified when those forms are complete. The next item is SB 544 regarding the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. This bill would provide the board an alternative set of provisions to hold a meeting by teleconference, which will remain effective until January 1st, 2026. This bill will also provide the board an alternative set of provisions for committees to hold a meeting by teleconference, which is also to remain effective until January 1st, 2026. And another provision will replace that afterwards. The board did notify licensees and stakeholders in an electronic advisory about the statutory change on January 25, 2024. Due to the state budget restrictions, the board is reviewing which meetings can be made completely remote using SB 544 and which meetings can use regular teleconference rules in order to achieve some cost savings in the current and coming fiscal year. The next item is SB 612, speech language pathologist. This bill will specify that a licensed SLP who obtained their written verification before January 1st, 2023 meets the requirements to perform a feed procedure. The board has notified licensees and stakeholders in an electronic advisory about this change, and we are ensuring that our law and regulations book for this board is updated with the new changes. The next item in the report is the 2024 board sponsor legislation. We currently have an omnibus proposal, which will make changes to the speech language pathology assistant associate degree type, as well as make any grammatical corrections. We currently don't have a bill for that, but we will continue monitoring to see which bill that will be. Item D of the report is bills with active positions taken by the board. AB 381 is the teacher's credentialing, service credentials with specialization in health. This bill would have deleted the provisions specifying that services as an occupational therapist or physical therapist are not health services, and authorize the commission on teacher credentialing to issues health service credential to occupational therapists and physical therapists. This bill did die in the Assembly's appropriation because it failed to meet the House of deadline origin in the second calendar year. And then the board had a neutral if amended position on that item. The next item is SB 635 regarding healthcare coverage for hearing aids. This bill would have had required healthcare services plan contract or health insurance policy to include coverage for hearing aid for enrollees and insureds under 21 years of age if medically necessary. The governor did veto this item on October 7, 2023, and the veto was sustained by the Senate on January 25th, 2024. And included in the memo is the governor's veto message. The board had a support position. And then we have bills with recommended watch lists. I do just want to highlight a couple of new ones, as well as some that have died in the process. So the first one is AB 477 regarding legislative review of state bill boards. This bill did die in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee because it failed to meet the House of Origin deadline in the second calendar year. We also have SB 763 on criminal records, which also died because it failed to meet the House of Origin deadline in the Senate Appropriations Committee. And then we do have new items on the watch list that we also included the text, and that is AB 1816 regarding deceptive practices, AB 1900 Consumer Legal Remedies Act, AB 1928 Workers Classification, Employees and Independent Contractors, AB 194 California Consumer Privacy Act of 2020, Collection of Personal Information of Consumer less than 18 years of age, AB 2011 Unlawful Employment Practice for Small Employer Family Leave Mediation Program, AB 2269 Board Membership Qualifications, SB 908 Public Records, and SB 935 Department of Consumer Affairs. And that completes my report.
Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to open now for board discussion. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask the moderator to open for public comment.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A features to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the legislative report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon and click that. Type the word comment into the text box and then click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the legislative report? I do not see any comment requests. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now moving on to agenda item 10, legislative items for future meetings. I'd like to ask if there are any legislative items for future meetings that anyone would like to present.
Currently, board staff does not have any right now, but we will continue to be on the lookout for bills as right now there's a lot of spot bills that don't make a lot of changes just to get the vehicle open. And they'll start getting some language pretty soon.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for board discussion. Is there any board discussion regarding legislative items for future meeting? Hearing none, I'd like to ask the moderator to open public comment at this time.
Thank you. If there are any public comments on the future legislation, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in that text box and click send. If you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
We'll move on to agenda item 11, the regulatory report, update, review, and possible action on board regulation packages. I'd like to ask Ms. Maria Lozano to provide the regulatory report. Lorenzo, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. So the first item in the regulatory report is the SLIPA supervision requirements. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on February 2nd, 2024. The regulatory text was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law for review on February 5th, and they have until March 19th to make a decision on this rulemaking. The proposed regulatory change will permit telesupervision as direct supervision of a SLIPA, require higher level of supervision during the first 90 days of work following a SLIPA initial licensure, require both a minimum level of experience and professional development training in supervision before supervising a SLIPA, permit the supervision of 3 full-time equivalent support personnel not to exceed 6 at any time, incorporate by reference a revised supervision form and revised notice of termination form. The next item is the continuing education requirements for hearing aid dispensers. This regulatory proposal is in the finalizing regulatory package phase and requires review and approval by the board. We do have a memo and materials to present to the board on that item. Item C is the continuing professional development requirements for speech language pathologists and audiologists. This regulatory proposal is in the public comment period phase and requires review and approval of the board, which we do have a memo and materials. Next item is advertising for hearing aid dispensing. This regulatory proposal is also in the public comment period phase and requires review and approval by the board. Item E is the approve institutions regulation. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on March 25th, 2023. Board staff submitted the required regulatory documents for DCA review on August 28, 2023, and is developing the economic and fiscal impact statement for budget review as of September 27, 2023. This proposed regulatory change will permit the board to review and/or approve accrediting bodies who wish to provide accreditation to programs where individuals can complete the academic and clinical requirements for licensure in the practices of speech-language pathology or audiology. Item F is the hearing aid dispensers trainee and temporary license supervision. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on August 25th, 2023. Board staff submitted the required regulatory documents for DCA review on September 5th, 2023, and is working with DCA budgets to develop the economic and fiscal impact statement as of September 26th, 2023. This proposed regulatory change will clarify that supervision is required for the entire duration of the trainee or temporary license, specify different levels of supervision, require a higher level of supervision during the first 90 days, specify task and knowledge supervisor must provide to trainees, require supervisors to complete training and supervision, specify criteria to request a waiver to supervise more than one trainee or temporary license holder, make requirements applicable to all temporary license types who require supervision, and make requirements applicable to all license type who can supervise. The next item on the report is item G, the fingerprint printing requirements. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on May 13, 2022. Board staff submitted the regulatory documents for DCA review on August 31st, 2022, and is developing the economic and fiscal impact for budget review as of September 28th, 2022. This proposed regulatory change will require licensees who were initially licensed prior to January 1, 1999, or for whom an electronic fingerprints record does not exist to be fingerprinted as a condition of renewal. The next item is the general application requirements and hearing aid dispensers and dispensing audiologists examination requirements. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on December 1st, 2023. Board staff is preparing the regulatory documents for DCA review. This proposed regulatory change will codify general application requirements such as the expedited licensure process, make current the written and practical examination process, codify the written and practical examination application forms and their examination fees, change the practical examination appeal deadline, specify a deadline for the board to notify an application of its decision on the practical examination appeal, and change the hearing aid dispenser examination requirements for applicants of a dispensing audiology license. The next item is processing times. The board approved revisions to the proposed regulatory text on December 1st, 2023. Board staff is preparing the required regulatory documents for DCA review. The proposed regulatory change will remove processing times and the references to processing times in multiple regulation sections. And then the last item on the report is the audiology licensing requirements related to supervised clinical. The board approved the proposed regulatory text on December 1st, 2023. Board staff is preparing the required regulatory documents for DCA review. The proposed regulatory change will codify the number of clock hours of supervised clinical practice required for audiology licensure applicants who have completed an audiology doctoral program. And then attached is the stage of the regulatory process. I do want to note that we have updated it as the DCA has recently made changes to the regulatory process within this department. So you'll see that it is now a four-phase process, but we did highlight some key milestones within the process, and that's what each of the boxes represent.
Thank you for your regulatory report. We'll go ahead and open up for board discussion prior to Ms. Alonso presenting the items 11B, 11C, and 11D. Is there any board discussion regarding the regulatory report at this time?
John Dandrand. I have a question on G, and this is just curiosity on the process itself. I see that on G, nothing has done the statement of budget review as of September 28th, 2022. Does that mean this is sort of dead, or it will eventually come around and end up as a departmental review at some point?
We still need one. It was determined as part of the fiscal review that we most likely will need to ask for a budget change proposal for an additional position. We'll be reviewing that again since we did get another position in licensing, but we'll double check that If so, then it may, with the state budget, have to wait a year just due to the criteria for getting a budget change proposal approved for next year during the budget crisis. So we'll just have to discuss that further and evaluate that. It's definitely not dead, but sometimes we do have to delay certain things.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention that because we have such a large regulatory workload, we have to prioritize our regs. Some of these regulation packages that we're working on have, a direct impact on consumer protection. I mean, they all do, but some are a little higher priority than the ones that have been lingering for some time. As Sharice mentioned, this one involves what we call a fiscal impact. So that's going to probably affect the length of time it takes. And then I think the other thing to point out for board members that are new is up until very recently, we didn't have a regulations analyst. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these proposals that were kind of in the docket that have been lingering for some time. So that's probably why you're going to see some of these old rulemaking files for a while until we catch up and we eliminate them. But we do prioritize.
Thank you.
Any further board discussion? Okay, great. Hearing none, I would like to ask the moderator to open for public comment at this time.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx hand raise and Q&A functions to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the regulatory report, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box, and click send. If you are on a mobile device, these features may be behind the 3-dot other options on your device. And if you are a call-in user, you may press *3 to raise your hand. Are there any comments on the regulatory report? And as a point of clarification also, I wanted to let you know that the connection from Stanford has dropped. Oh, but Tulio Valdez is in the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And there are no comments at this time.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment at this time.
My apologies. I do see we got one last minute question. A question from Megan McCann, written into the comments box. If the SLPA supervision changes are passed, when would those changes likely go into effect? And that is the only comment we received.
For the SLPA supervision, if approved by the Office of Administrative Law and filed with the Secretary of State, we're looking at a July 1st effective date.
All right, shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this, before we move into agenda items 11B, C, and D, we're going to go ahead and instead of taking a break at 1:30, we will go ahead and take a break right now. And is 30 minutes an okay time frame for everyone? Is everyone good with
That works.
reconvening? So why don't we go ahead and reconvene at 1:30 p.m.
I'm sorry, real quick. How much do we have left that we think time-wise?
We're thinking anywhere from 40 minutes to 50 minutes after.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and reconvene at 1:30 on the dot. May we put that on the slide, on the screen? That would be great.
I will work on that now.
Certainly.
Thank you. See you in a bit.
Thank you. And Sharice, I've got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and continue with our board meeting. I will start by taking roll call for the attendees. I'm here. Dr. Amy White,
Here.
Mr. Todd Borges, Ms. Karen Chang,
Here.
Mr. John Danduran, Mr. John Danduran.
Here.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Charles Sanders,
Here.
Dr. Tulio Valdez.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any members of the public at any of the locations?
No members of the public at Sacramento location.
No members of the public at the Lodi location.
Members of the public at Stanford.
Thank you.
None in Moore Park.
And there are none in Glendora. Thank you. We'll go ahead and continue with agenda item 11G. We'll ask Ms. Maria Lorenzo to present this agenda item to us right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. Item 11C is the correction. Item 11B is the continuing education requirements for hearing aid dispensers. This proposed regulatory change will increase the number of CE hours for hearing aid dispensers in related and indirect client care courses, permit other opportunities to fulfill the CE requirements, and align these regulations with continuing professional development regulatory requirements that we have for other for the practice of speech language pathology and audiology. Pursuant to Government Code Section 1346.9A1 and 11347.1, the board issued a 50-day notice to allow publics to review new documents relied on to update the information contained in the initial statement of reason. The 15-day comment period began on January 8th and ended on January 23. And we received 13 comments, 1 in support and 12 not related to the new documents relied on to update the information contained in the eyesore. We do not recommend any additional changes. So we have included all the comments received for this proposed regulation, as well as drafted some board response to those comments that are there for your review. We ask that you review them and discuss them, and if you and then we have a suggested motion language to allow us to proceed with finalizing the process.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion on this agenda item? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to ask for a motion on this item. There is suggested motion language at the bottom of the document under action requested. So I'd like to ask someone to make a motion.
Charles Sanders, I'll make the motion. We move to approve the proposed board responses to comments on proposed regulatory text for Title 16, CCR, sections 1399.140, 1399.140.1, and 1399.144, and direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including the filing of the final rulemaking package with the Office of Administrative Law, authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations before completing the rulemaking process, and adopt the proposed regulations at Title 16 CCR sections 1399.140, 1399.140.1, and 1399.144 as noticed and amended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Dr. White, second.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the moderator at this time to open public comment.
And this is the moderator. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in that text box and click send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. And if you are on a mobile device, you may need to hit the 3-dot other options in order to access the public comment features. Are there any comments at this time? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask Ms. Sharice Burns to conduct the roll call vote at this time.
Hilda Dominguez,
Aye.
Amy White,
Aye.
Todd Borges,
Aye.
Karen Chang,
Aye.
John Danduran,
Aye.
Charles Sanders,
Aye.
Tulio Valdez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Ms. Maria Lorenzo to proceed and present agenda item 11C.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. This is the CPD requirements for SLPs and audiologists. This proposed regulatory change will clarify definitions to reflect advancements made to SLP and audiology continuing professional development courses delivered online, increase the number of self-study hours to half of the total required hours, clarify current regulations by making these requirements consistent with the audit process and professional learning requirements for similar license type and course content. On December 8th, 2023, the board issued a 15-day notice of availability of modified text, and the public comment period closed on December 26th. The board did not hold a public hearing for this proposed regulatory action, nor was one requested from any interested member or authorized representative. The board received a total of 12 comments, 10 during the 15-day comment period, and 2 after. 1 in support, 8 not related to the proposed modifications, and 3 on the rulemaking process or procedure followed in modifying the proposed text. So you'll see for the first item on the recommendation for discussion, they're the summary of all the comments we received, as well as our response as to why we do not recommend the board to modify the text to accommodate the comments. We do ask that the board review it and let us know if they wish to accept our recommendation or if they want to make changes to the text to respond to some of the comments.
Accept the recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sharice, did you have a comment?
I want Maria to read the one about the one that we're taking outside of acceptable course content conversation.
Okay. Continue.
That is, you're talking about 8? Summary A, B. Wait, which summary are you looking at?
I'm looking at question number 2.
Okay, question number 2. If there are any questions with question number 1, there is a question number 2. Board staff is recommending that the board modified section 1399.160.4F to say outside acceptable course content instead of outside the scope of continuing professional development. This change is much clearer to the information contained in the subsection, and you'll see that to see that in the text, which is attachment B. It will be on page 10. upset. So we are recommending that the board make modification of text to make this just a small change, which will require a 15-day notice. In addition to the 15-day notice, as part of the 15-day notice, we will have to publish the documents that we're using to rely on and the rationale for our final statement of reason. And so that will also be noticed with this proposed text.
All right, thank
Not,
you.
okay, sorry, and I was gonna clarify that, that's the last question on there was that we'll be noticing it, an addendum to the eyesore, which you'll see in attachment C, a list of all the documents that we're using.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to open up for board discussion at this time. I guess for question 2, I'm okay with that verbiage, that language.
I agree, Gilda.
Okay. Any other board input on that question 2? Okay. All right, so Maria, I guess we have 2 responses on that regarding that language. Is there any other board discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to ask for a motion. And there is suggested motion language there under the action requested regarding modifying the proposed regulatory text for these sections. May I have a motion?
This is Dr. White. I'll move to modify the proposed regulatory text for 16 CCR sections 1399.160 through 1399.160.4 and direct staff to take all steps necessary to notice the modified regulatory text and addendum to the eyesore.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Todd, I second.
Thank you.
And this is just regulatory counsel, Grace Rufo Rodriguez, just for clarity, I would say, and the modification is consistent with the question proposed in, or the language proposed in part 2, in question 2.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the moderator to open public comment at this time.
Thank you. We've opened up the WebEx features for public comment. If anyone has a comment on the motion, you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, or you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment into the text box that appears, and then press send. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the motion? I do not see any comments. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Sharice Burns to conduct the roll call vote.
Gilda Dominguez,
Aye.
Amy White,
Aye.
Todd Borges,
Aye.
Karen Chang,
Aye.
John Danduran,
Aye.
Charles Sanders,
Aye.
Tulio Valdez,
Aye.
and the motion carries.
Thank you. So next we have agenda item 11D, and I'd like to ask Ms. Maria Lorenzo to present information to the board on this item.
This item is advertising for hearing aid dispensing. This proposed regulatory change will clarify that anyone licensed to dispense hearing aids can advertise the fitting and selling of hearing aids in accordance with Business and Profession Code 651 and CCR section 1399.127. Information required in advertisements, prohibited advertisements, and national advertisements disseminated in California. The 45-day period comment began on November 17th, 2023, and ended on January 3rd, 2024. The board received 2 comments during the initial 45-day comment period. One comment did request a public hearing, which was held earlier today, and also recommended the board to amend section 1399.127C to say unless the following information is provided on an internet website, and that internet website is included in the advertising. The board received another comment that recommended the same changes to that same section. And like I mentioned, we did held the public hearing pursuant to Government Code Section 11346.8 earlier today at 11 o'clock. So the board may accommodate recommendation from the public comments, and in the memo, you'll see how the information would appear in subsection C there, underlined. Additionally, the board may also consider changes to the text, in particular to C2, which is to require all license number for all who are licensed at the location advertised. And you'll see in the memo that the language, what that would look like in the text. And then the board may also accommodate any recommendation from the public provided at the public hearing held today. And the only comment that we received was the same comment that was received during the comment period, which is to include the information of unless the information is advertised on the website, and that website is included in the advertising. And so we do have, we'll let boards, if the board can just review and see how they want to accommodate the comments. And I think Sharice will also make a comment.
So in part of looking at the regulations and also the comments received, one of the things we also did as staff was to go ahead and take a look at some of the websites for some providers. And one of the things that we thought was a helpful additional recommendation was about all persons licensed to dispense hearing aids at a location beyond that website. It's one thing that we noticed we are either not seeing, or that maybe there's a lack of posting all individuals that are locations, where we're seeing trainees at certain sites without their supervisor also being posted to that site as if the supervisor isn't there. We also noticed things with different names. Obviously, hearing instrument specialist is a term used in a lot of other states, but obviously we're licensed here in California as hearing aid dispensers. And then we noticed that there's also not often the license number provided on the website. So some of these are changes that would probably need to be made, along with the idea of having, as long as the following information is provided on the internet website, that would also need to be, make sure people understand that would need to be updated on their website, or if they are a provider at a national company that does the website modifications, that's something they'll need to bring up with their company. So we just wanted to bring up that part and mention what we noticed when we looked out in the field, and bring those considerations for your consideration.
Thank you. I'd now like to open for board discussion.
This is Dr. White. I have just a question on the page 2 of 2 that we're looking at here with the suggested motion language. Just above that, under the recommendations section, it says, additionally, the board may also consider the following change, requiring the license number of all who are licensed at the location advertised. And then item 2, the license number of all persons licensed to dispense hearing aids at the location advertised include the letters. Is HA correct for hearing aid dispensers? At HAD?
Technically speaking, your license has HA.
Okay.
Not yours, I'm sorry.
Yep.
The license
Understood.
numbers have HA.
Yep, understood. Other than that, I support the recommended changes to include that the information may be provided on the internet website, and that as long as the website address is included in the advertising.
This is John Dandran. I agree with the recommendation as well. I know one of the comments brought up the idea of using a QR code to satisfy the requirement. I don't know if that needs to be put in here somewhere or that's a consideration. But that would be the only other comment that I would have. And as Dr. White mentioned, I don't know that those initials are correct on there. You have HA, I guess it's HAD, and would it be AU or AUD?
We do often say HAD and AUD here. However, technically on your licenses, it's an HA and a AU. And if it's a DAU, it does become DAU. And just as speech pathologist or speech language pathologist, remember, they all have an SP license. When they get it, it says SP and not SLP. Just a fact of old legacy systems with licensing.
Right, we're
So.
distinguishing what is part of the license number versus what is typically an abbreviated title.
Yes.
Which are two different things.
So
Understood.
ought DAU be added?
I think we need to put it as DAU, yeah. That would be the one random one where it's, well, actually, technically, it's an AU with a,
What's the license say?
it's actually AU.
It's AU.
With it, they have a subclass of dispensing, which makes you a DAU.
Oh, for this, the license actually reads AU.
It does read AU, so you would say AU. Apologies.
Fair enough. So to go back to John's question about the QR code, I'm not sure how the other board members feel about that. I don't feel like having a QR code in place of the website address would be okay. I think for older consumers, that's still a little tricky. So still a little new tech for them. So I would advocate that we, if a QR code wants to be included, that's fine, but that the website also be included.
Yeah,
I would agree. Charles Sanders, I would agree with that as well, just to maximize accessibility for older individuals, to make sure that if somebody may not have a phone but does have a computer, that they'd be able to type in the address rather than taking a picture of it with their phone.
I agree. This is Gilda, I agree.
And this is Todd, I agree as well. If they want to put it in addition to, but not in replacement of.
Any other further board discussion?
I think, this is Karen. I think we just have to make sure that they put all the information on the website. Because Sharice, you mentioned that some people on their website, they don't even have their ID numbers on there, correct? Right.
Correct. We were seeing that the license number is not on there at all. And we're also seeing that the fact that they're a trainee is not on there as well. So we were seeing hearing aid trainees identified as hearing aid instrument specialists, but not anywhere signifying that they're a trainee and needed supervision.
So I think that would mean then, Karen, right, if you're advertising, if you're using your web address in your advertisement, then you better make sure that all of those items are included on your website.
Right. Yeah.
Alternatively, if they're putting it in print and they're not doing it to a website, or they have their web address, but they also have the information on the advertisement, would that be acceptable? Like if their website's not updated, but the advertisement has the correct information?
It would be one or the other.
Okay, so it's not both, it's one or the other.
Yeah. Okay.
This is Todd. I have a question. Then do we have to have language that says if you're going to put it, as your web address, then the information has to be updated on the website, or is it just a given or an assumption and we don't need to be specific about that?
I think that's an understanding that we have, that a website address, the website's going to be your advertisements.
Okay. Because I'd hate for them to be able to say, okay, well, we'll just say, check our web address, and then not actually have the appropriate information on their website. And they don't change it like it is now.
I think that would be the interesting part, because of course, everything we put into laws and regulations comes down to enforcement, right? So then we get a complaint It says that, you know, I saw this advertisement, I came to this location, but the website said I would be seen by this provider because this is the only provider at the location, but I was seen by so-and-so and I wasn't happy with my service, so I'm filing a complaint. I think that would come down to having to look at the website, to look at it promptly, also to try to be able to access different versions or prior versions of websites. I don't know how easy that is, but I do know sometimes they'll have the Google search will have different older versions of websites. So I think that's an interesting component, but it will be, it's part of the how well you can enforce it, right? But that's one of the next questions is advertising, and then we go and check it. And then, you know, things aren't up to date. You're gonna need to keep them up to date. If you're advertising and you bank on the website being on there instead of providing everything, you know, you're gonna need to make sure it is up to date because that is, unless it's all provided, and that's 1 and 2. So it's not just 1 or not just 2, it's both provisions, C1 and C2. All of it's provided on the website.
And I don't know about Utah, but the way I read C, you know, it shall include the following information unless the following information is provided on an internet website and that internet website address is included in the advertising. And then it outline, you know, 1 and 2 have all of the information required. So is that, you don't feel like that's clear enough?
I guess it is. I'm constantly looking at these things for, you know, from the other direction of, you know, the folks out there that are looking for the loopholes or just aren't going to pay attention to it and, you know, try to take the shortcut. But it's listed fairly clearly, I guess.
And the point of clarification I was making is that when we're looking at a website, separate from this language that says if the information has the internet website and that information has to be updated on the website, I want to clarify that when we look at an internet website, we include that as advertising. So all of the information on the website has to conform with the advertising regulations and the regulations that are in the general BMP code.
Oh, this is Karen. One of my other main concerns is when you're doing hearing aids, you're dealing with an older population, which might or might not be using websites or computers and whatnot. So that's something to maybe think about.
I'll be honest, Karen, that's one of the first things I thought of as well. I have a number of patients who, you know, don't have a computer even in their home. And that was a little bit of a concern of mine. It's certainly becoming less and less typical, but that is still.
So there,
Yeah.
I agree.
It's kind of why I'm just a little bit ambivalent about it.
Those who are working in this field, do you find that you deal with consumers that would have a challenge retrieving this information online? Or are we really relying on family members to help facilitate this? But is that?
Exactly. This is Charlie. As soon as I feel that the individual would have difficulty accessing this information, they would contact a younger family member or somebody that was more internet savvy to find it for them. In the advertising, they probably have their phone number as well of the business to look that up, to even call them for additional information. And so there's several ways and avenues for the individual to receive this information.
I would say in my experience in clinic these days, really even just in the last 5 years, it's much more rare to come across someone that doesn't have a cell phone, a smartphone, or be able to use the internet. And if they are kind of that vein, then they tend to be accommodated and with their family members that help make decisions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of that has to do with where they live. You know, there are rural areas that are going to be, you know, far more likely to not have a computer or internet as opposed to more areas that like cities. So, you know, if you spend your time basically dispensing in the city, it would never come up. But if you're in rural areas like my area and other areas in the foothills, you're going to see it actually come up more frequently. And to be honest, having to rely upon another family member, you know, to look this information up for you, I feel like, you know, the information should be readily available to that individual without necessarily having to jump through hoops to get it.
And do you feel like a phone call would be jumping through hoops, Todd?
Well, could be. I mean, you depend on the person. You know, I would want this to be as streamlined and as simple to that consumer as possible. You know, if they have to hunt for something, then to me that's a problem.
Would the requirement that the advertisement has to have a phone number to call? Outside of just that the internet website could have all the rest of it? Would that be something that helps alleviate that since most will write down a phone number and call first, especially those that don't access the computer?
Are we making the assumption that people are advertising without putting a phone number on their advertisement?
I'm actually making the presumption that if we allow you to not put the phone number on, you may skip it. Because if advertising is about how much space you're taking up on print or digital media, a website with no phone number and no name and all the rest of it might be smaller and may cost less, is my guess. So therefore, the less we require on the actual advertisement, the less may be put on the advertisement. So normally I would presume the phone number is going to be on there with, they want you to call, you guys know your audience. But if the law technically doesn't require it, then the advertisement could be there with just, you know, a name, a flashing bauble, and a website.
Yeah, and I think this guideline was intended to provide the necessary information that we need for consumer protection, like the location that they work out of and the licensees that work there. I think there's some incentive for those businesses to include information that's going to help promote their business. So things like, I would imagine that if you want people to call you, you're going to put your phone number there. If you want them to go to your website, you're going to put that information there too. I don't know if we need to require it.
Actually, I think a phone number is fine. But Paul has a point. If you want business, if you want business, you're going to put your phone number and website address on there.
And I'm thinking of all advertising too. Let's say I don't know, you go to a fair and you're giving balloons away, and instead of putting your phone number on there, you just put you put the name of your company.com, because they know they're going to go to the website now. And you don't put anything else, and that's on a t-shirt or a balloon or a hat. Does that fall outside of our guidelines?
I mean, I think that's a promotional item. I don't know that I'm gonna go and open up a case and start investigating that, like balloons or t-shirts or, squeeze balls or whatever else they give out at a fair.
The business and profession code has language of what advertising is and what public communication is. And I'm currently looking at 651, and it doesn't include that promotional kind of stuff. I'll have to look at the other hearing aid dispenser.
But the point I'm making, Maria, is that that's not something that we're gonna go start investigating.
651 is probably
Yeah,
why we
right,
wouldn't.
right, exactly. But, I mean, we don't want to stand in the way of people promoting their business.
We just want to protect consumers when they do advertise to promote their.
I think as long as the person, the consumer, is given the opportunity to either call the location to determine, who they're going to see, or they can access the internet if they have that ability to then see the list of the people that are there. I think that's doable. I think that's certainly reasonable.
So this is Grace for the Regulatory Council, just to sort of this discussion and kind of help us discuss where we're going here. Currently, what we have is an internet exception, and there's two clear requirements. It's the address and the license number. Right now, we're discussing the phone number. So is there a suggestion to make the phone number a legal requirement? Because at this time, there is none. And it sounds like, just based on the discussion we're having, it's sufficient to have the address and the license number, and then it becomes more of a business judgment if they want to list a phone number. From a public protection standpoint, I mean, I think those are the key things, the place and the license. The phone number is really more of a way to reach them, and that becomes more of how do you want to promote your business. So I just want to frame it in the sense of, we have our motion before us, or for consideration, we don't have a motion before us, excuse me. We have language that we are looking at to consider permitting an internet exception. But the two legal requirements we're focusing on is the address and license number. So I just don't want to move past that. Right now, that's all we're looking at, is creating an internet exception. If the board would like to consider adding a third requirement, a phone number, we can also take that up as well. But right now, we're just looking at the internet language modification.
I think this is really just for the protection of the consumer. So I think as far as the internet goes and the information that we're requiring, I think that fits what we're really looking for as far as protecting the consumer, to make sure that they are not misled down a path that does happen on occasion. So
Is there any further board discussion before we ask for the motion?
I'm sorry, Todd or Karen, can you clarify if you're okay as written, or if you, to answer the question posed a few minutes ago, if you feel like having the phone number or adding a clause, unless the following information is provided, adding something in there about there will at least be a phone number, or that's no longer something that we need to put in the language here?
I'm okay as written, because, if they don't want to put the phone number, or if they don't put the phone number, that's on them. If somebody rather make a phone call, so they lose that business.
I agree with that.
I agree with that as well.
Todd, are you still on mute?
Yeah, that's not, I mean, the phone number is not really kind of an issue, as she was saying, because it's really about the advertising of the internet exception. So honestly, as I think about it, and I think about my own customers and the number of them who tell me, they don't have a computer. I kind of am, I was fine with it at first, but the more I think about it, the more issue kind of I have of not stating who is there in that advertisement, and make it clear to that consumer without having to take the extra step of going to the computer to find out who is there, or getting a family member to look it up, because they're not going to ask their family member. They're just going to accept it for what it is. They're not going to say, hey, why don't you look online for me and see who's at this place. So I think for full disclosure and clarity, I would prefer to have it listed in the advertisement.
And just for clarification, this is great. Grace, Reg Council, are you asking listed a phone number as a requirement? Because right now,
I'm not asking that, because
Okay.
that, as you said, that's not something we could really consider at this point. It's just the question at hand as to the change in it.
Okay, because so just again for clarity, currently what we have is the two requirements are the address and the license number of the person licensed to dispense the hearing aids. Those are the two requirements. So is the ask the individual's name? Because right now, again, we have the license number.
Well, this is Maria, regulation analyst. I mean, we could, because we're discussing modifying the text, and if we want to make additional changes, we can. It's just, it has to be done today, and we need to have a language. We could always add and that the internet address and telephone number is included in the advertising. I think that's where Mr. Borges is trying to get, is that he wants both website and a phone number, so that if someone can call and ask for these information. So I think that's where that text would go, if that's what you're looking that the regulations does.
I'm looking at that as an alternative to accepting the change as it is, where they don't have to put that information on the advertisement. They can just say it's on the website, go look for it. The information meaning the name of the people and their license number.
And I think maybe, and this could be my problem, I assumed because it's the services by a person licensed by the board that the name was on there, and we were asking them to add the license number. So I presumed the name was always on the advertisement. So I maybe
And it
have
may be
assumed
in
that
another
wrong.
section. It just.
And yeah, I'm gonna go look as well, because now I was like, oh, how is name not on there? And it's just the license number. I assume because it's a service by a person, the person's name is on the advertisement. So
Well,
You probably want that.
even then, that's fine. But I mean, that's fine. Okay, the name's there, but we're saying it has to add the license number. Okay, then that's what we're talking about. But my point being, I think it needs to be on the ad where it's clearly visible to person reading it, as opposed to saying, go to the website to find this information. If we want to have that
I think
compromise to say we have to have the phone number so they could call to get that information, then that's fine.
I think
I could be outvoted. It is a democracy.
This is Maria, regulation analyst. I think from the public comment, the reason why they wanted the internet website was because they felt it was going to be a lot of information to advertise, like on a print ad. If you're including all the addresses and all the people who are licensed there, it could be, depending on how you're advertising, a lot of information. And so that's why they have recommended the board to add that website, so that all that information could be online on the website that they're advertising.
So,
Gotcha.
so with TV and radio, yeah, it becomes either a time or it's actually a time issue. You can only put so much on there, but for our language, is the idea to throw at minimum a phone number? So as the language is written, where it starts underlined at unless the following information applies, could we add something to that minimally you have to put a phone number up as well, and then you can go to the website. So you got a phone number and go to the website, or you need to have the following information below.
And I'll acquiesce to Grace as well, but I would think we could say something about shall include the phone number and the following information, unless, that way it's saying phone number first and the rest of it, unless it's on the website. So that way we're clear. Every advertisement's going to at least have a phone number where they can get this information, or the website to get this information.
But I don't know that I think what Todd's trying to get at, perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're going to use the website to store that information, that you must at least have your phone number along with the website listed. So maybe the underlined portion can say, unless the following information is provided on an internet website, and that internet website address as well as phone number are included in the advertising. Because then we're saying, if you're going to use your website, you better at least have your phone number on there too, for the people that can't access the web. Does that
We just add it as bullet point 3.
It wouldn't have.
No, it wouldn't have the same effect,
Right.
because of that exemption, of the website exemption.
Well, that's what it says, unless the following information is provided: the address, name and license number, and a phone number.
Well, advertising
Right.
the website and the phone number. The second part of that sentence.
Right,
Mhm.
okay.
We're saying is we want all of this information unless you're putting it on a website. And I guess the suggestion is if you're going to include the website address, to also include the phone number.
Yes,
Get these two things, the principal place of the business and the name and number, license number of the individuals that work there. And that's a really important consumer protection component here, because we're not just trying to create requirements for, that will help them in their advertising. We're actually, and I know that no one's assuming that here, but I just want to make sure that we're all focused on the consumer protection aspect of this, that we want to know where the principal business is, place of business, and the individuals that are practicing there.
Which is kind of my point of having in the advertising. But to be clear, I never even considered that they wouldn't have a phone number in the advertising until Sharice brought up that technically they wouldn't have to put in a phone number. So.
Well, you would think that they would have their.
That
phone
wasn't even,
number,
so that wasn't really.
anything else that would help them promote
Yeah.
their business.
But that's not why that wasn't the impetus for me to then, bring up my objection, was because of that. It was for just what you said, Paul, that, for me, the consumer protection means that information is clear on the advertising. Because I know of a number of people who don't have computers or access to the internet to be able to look that information up. And I don't think we should require them to make an extra step to have to contact someone to get that information, if they even care about it. That's the other reality, right? How many people they're just going to call and see the ad. But, if we look at it from a consumer protection standpoint, that's just my personal issue with it, given my experience of where my consumers are.
So just for clarity, this is Grace, Red Council, just for clarity and brevity in our time of our discussion, it is meaningful, but it is also a regulatory package we do want to make modifications to, and our 15-day clock is running on it. What do you have proposed? What is your goal, so that we can consider language to draft?
I don't know. Because this is just when I got the package, I looked at it, and it kind of evolved as everyone was discussing it now. I was originally all for it.
I think that this discussion is very fruitful. I think where we're just considering is, what are we requiring? And the points that we're raising is address and license number. I think all of the other things would just be poor advertising if you don't put your name, you don't put a way to reach you. Because right now the ad would just be nothing. It would just be a website to go to. And so I think there's that tying in. But I don't know if it's also worth, if folks want to take a 5-minute recess and kind of gather thoughts, or I also see some board members here in person that may want to speak up as well.
Sorry, so I just, to maybe get us all on the same page, I don't think the discussion's really about what to require, right, Todd? The discussion is about whether or not to allow the website exemption.
Correct.
That it's not about what we're requiring, it's just whether or not we want to allow that exemption from having it all on the ad to be online.
Correct.
This is John. I feel it's one way or the other, and I also feel that if your marketing goal is to force everybody to go to the website, you're going to have a certain number of the consumers out there that just are not going to go because they don't go there. And that's your choice as a business owner or marketing person. to make. And should the state, should the board be requiring that to assist somebody on how they market? No, because I also don't think that it affects the consumer in a negative manner. They just look at an ad and go, wait a minute, I don't have a computer. I throw this right in the trash. And that, to me, I think we just really need to focus on that aspect of it. Because I don't think that's affecting the consumer negatively or fraudulently.
This is Karen. I would agree. If you're thinking of, does a consumer, when they go and look for hearing aids, do they actively look for the license number and whatnot? They just go and then they'll see the license number or stuff at the doctor's office, right? So I guess I guess the website's okay because what John mentioned, it's on you if you don't put on the phone number and you're advertising for your business. But I do also, I'm in a crossroads because I do agree with Todd. There are rural areas in California and there are seniors there that,
This is Charlie again, and that's true, but what are they gonna do with that information? What the issue is if they're gonna have a complaint or a concern, and they're gonna wanna do that, they are going to have the internet. Using my license number, unless they drive themselves all the way down here to Sacramento, come all the way up here to the board office to ask someone in person who I am and what my license number is, if it's suspended, if it's active, if I have any complaints against me, is not possible without the internet anyway. Just knowing that number is useless to them unless they have access to the internet or access to this office. There's no way to file a complaint otherwise, other than through the mail, and that would take weeks. They'd have to call here.
okay.
Well, I think our largest population right now is the baby boomer generation, and I think we all know how to use the internet. Speaking from that generation, I think we all know how to use the internet, and I think we also direct our parents if they're having issues, if they have a complaint. We're going to help walk through that process with them. So I don't know if it's that much of an issue. We have an office in Chula Vista next to the border. And that's more of an economic issue that they don't have computers. And most of their kids have phones and they use the internet and they use our website as, the glorified telephone book, but it works. And our internet has, names, faces, license numbers, and phone numbers, obviously, for all locations. So, I think we're really just trying to protect our consumers the best we can. So I think we do have to realize that the internet is here to stay. So the language does have to address that. And if we're going to point people to a website, I think the language also is very clear. If a company does not maintain their website appropriately, that is advertising and that's on them. And that's where the regulations will fall in place. So
Okay.
I'm all for what we have written as is, but I'm open for any other suggestion if you want to add something.
No, I'm fine.
Right. Any other board discussion? So it sounds like we're wishing to accommodate the recommendation, right, from the public comments. So does the suggested motion language still stand as is? Then if
Yes,
proceed
the
with the
motion
motion?
language still applies. The proposed modified text already includes the language that is included in the memo.
Okay. I just have one more question. Are we adding under 2 name and license number, or is that assumed that there's a name with that license number?
I think it's kind of with the telephone that it's just business practice to include your name.
Okay,
Number of persons.
but we're not going to require it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Currently, we don't see a whole lot of that. You usually see people's name in a picture on the website, but again, there could be anything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is John again. I'm missing that point. We are not going to require a name and a license number to go along with that name?
I think currently they're presuming it's implied and that all advertisements would have a name.
Well, and in number 2, it says clearly that the license number of the person. So you'd have to identify the person to identify the license number with them.
Very good. Very good.
I think if the board wishes to, we can add name if we want to state that explicitly in the regulation. I don't think there's any harm in doing that, right?
There isn't. We would just have to in the motion language will just state that it's as amended. So yes, we could add the name. So number 2 would be the name and license number of all persons licensed to dispense hearing aids at the location advertised.
What does the board think about that?
I think that's great.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, so the suggestion motion language, you're saying it would be like move to modify the proposed regulatory text. And then I direct staff to take all steps necessary to notice the modified regulatory text as amended?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Before we ask for the motion, is there any further board discussion before we proceed? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a motion for the proposed regulatory text as amended. And there is suggested motion language under action requested on page 2 of 2.
This is Dr. Sanders. I'll make the motion. I move to modify the proposed regulatory text for 16 CCR section 1399.127 and direct staff to take all steps necessary to notice the modified regulatory text as amended.
Is there a second?
Dr. White, second.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the moderator to open for public comment at this time.
And this is the moderator. We've opened up the public comment features to facilitate public comment. If you've got a comment on the motion, you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in the text box that appears there, and then hit send. And our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. We do have a hand raised from Joe Bartlett. Joe, I'm going to send you the request to unmute your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning.
Thank you again. This is Joe Bartlett, and I really appreciate all of the commentary and decision making along this process. And I was sitting in the background agreeing with many things that you guys are saying, because as an advertiser myself, it would be almost silly to not put my phone number out there, but I never thought of that being something that that some others wouldn't do. But it does give us that ability to contact directly to a person, and even there's some tracking for our own marketing, so value of having phone numbers on our ads already for that. So I didn't notice originally too that the name was missing from the license number, so I think that was a great addition if it's voted on there for it. So I do appreciate all the time spent on this and efforts that you've done. Thank you so much.
And I do not see any further requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Sharice Burns to conduct the roll call vote at this time.
Gilda Dominguez,
Aye.
Amy White,
Aye.
Todd Borges,
Nay.
Karen Chang,
Aye.
John Dandurand,
Aye.
Charles Sanders,
Aye.
Tulio Valdez.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12 for future agenda items. I'd like to ask board members and staff if there are any future agenda items that they would like to propose for a future meeting.
Board staff has no item for future agenda.
All right, thank you. Hearing none from the board members either, I'll go ahead and ask the moderator to open public comment at this time.
Thank you. This is the moderator. If anyone would like to suggest a topic for a future board meeting, you may click on the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment into the text box there and click send, or you may click on the hand icon. I will send a unmute request to anyone who wishes to be recognized to suggest a topic. Any topic suggestions for future meetings? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, regarding closed session, agenda item 13, there are no disciplinary matters discussed in closed session today. And at this time, we will now adjourn our meeting at 2:31 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Gilda,
Yes.
How about
this is
you?
John. I